Getting rich for the average person is really boring because how strategically you invest or how much money you make means absolutely nothing if you're not controlling where your money goes in the first place. So here's how to create a budget that works based on your own financial situation and the 30-minute monthly process that makes building real wealth seamless. And if you're a normal person like me, the moment you hear budget, you think, ew. But as a normal person, your life has been controlled at some point in time by the anxiety of not being able to afford groceries or saying no to having fun with your friends because your bank account won't cover it. And then you feel like a bad person for not planning out your finances in the first place. But that is normal. And the data backs that up. Studies found that 82% of adults age 18 to 34 reported that money is a significant source of stress. And when you look at the very few people who never run out of money or don't have to put an emergency expense on their credit card, they all follow a budget. Because whatever gets measured gets managed. And just because someone's doing well financially doesn't mean that they can spend whatever they want. 40% of people making over $300,000 a year reported that they live paycheck to paycheck, which is a higher percentage of people earning a fraction of that salary. So budgeting is not a sign of poor decision making or being broke. It's an action that you need to take if you want to maximize your financial growth. The realistic, mathematically backed budget that actually works in today's economy is called the 60-20-20 budget. This is a percentage-based approach where every dollar you make goes into 3 separate categories. So as you make more money, the more you can put into each one respectively. The first category makes up 60% of your take-home pay, and it covers every dollar you have to spend in a given month, no matter what. These are your fixed or necessary costs. So if you need gas to get to work, rent to have a place to sleep, groceries, or a loan payment that is due every single month, those are examples of fixed costs. And this category matters the most because if you overspend here, everything else falls apart. The Bureau of Labor Statistics found that the average household already spends 33% of its total budget on housing and 17% on transportation. So when it comes down to every other fixed cost, whether it's groceries, utilities, insurance, or debt repayments, they're only left with 10% of their take-home pay. And 60% should eventually feel like a ceiling as your income grows because the lower you push it, the faster your wealth can compound. But before we talk about the simplest way to track how much you're spending on fixed costs, we need to take a step back. Because chances are, when you do find that number, it's probably over 60%. And then it feels like, well, I'm screwed because I can't negotiate my necessary expenses. I have to pay them no matter what. But this assumption is worth testing because several of the categories that feel the most fixed are actually more negotiable than you think. One thing you can do right now is get a quote from a different car insurance provider. The median savings from switching insurance providers is $461 a year, and all it takes is a phone call from your couch. Or you can switch your phone plan to something called an MVNO. The average phone plan is $141 a month, but there are carriers running on the same exact towers as Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile that are willing to charge you $30 a month for the same coverage. Or even when you go to the grocery store, switching from name brand products to store brand products can save the average household over $2,000 a year. And you can do that without changing your diet. So if that fixed cost percentage comes in too high, chances are you're not overspending on what you need, you're just getting what you need from the wrong places. Once this is under control, we can actually enjoy our money. 20% of your take-home pay can go towards whatever you want. And this isn't my favorite category because it's the most fun, it's my favorite because it's the most empowering to me. Have you ever seen something you really wanted and then bought it even though it was too expensive, but then you just end up feeling bad about yourself after? That's because you never allowed yourself to spend that money in the first place. And 20% might not sound like a lot, but let's imagine you take home $4,000 a month. That means you can put $800 a month towards whatever you want. So give yourself permission to spend your money. 20% might not sound like a lot, but let's imagine you take home $4,000 a month. That means you can put $800 a month towards whatever you want. So give yourself permission to spend your money. 20% might not sound like a lot, but let's imagine you take home $4,000 a month. That means you can put $800 a month towards whatever you want. So give yourself permission to spend your money. And for the first time, you won't feel bad about it because it's already in the plan. Which now brings us to the last 20%, which dictates whether or not you live paycheck to paycheck. This percentage goes towards your future, savings, investments, and paying off debt ahead of schedule. Someone bringing home $200,000 a year with nothing going towards savings or investments is building the exact same amount of wealth as someone bringing home $40,000 a year with nothing saved or invested. Because spending everything you make produces the same outcome at any income level. And the personal savings rate for the average person is nowhere near 20%. In fact, as of April, the average person is only saving 2.6% of their income. So if you're close to nothing, then you're normal. But if you follow this budget, bring down your fixed costs, and increase your savings rate to 20%, you're doing more than 5 times what the average household can manage. This is where the real wealth is built, but it's only possible if the other categories don't exceed 80% of your spending. Now we have the structure, but how do we actually build this budget with real numbers? Because tracking every expense in a spreadsheet is boring, but it's too boring. I wouldn't recommend anything I wouldn't personally use, and I've tried several spending trackers online, and the best option I found is Rocket Money. It's free, takes 5 minutes to set up, links to your bank, and categorizes your spending so you know exactly where every dollar goes. But there are 2 things worth knowing before you trust those categories completely. Any Venmo or Cash App transfers will show up as a single transaction with no context or category. So a $50 Venmo to a friend for dinner looks exactly like a $50 Venmo to your roommate for utilities. You'll need to manually relabel these for what they actually are, but all it takes is just a few clicks. And second, just because the app categorizes your spending doesn't mean it categorizes it into fixed costs, fund spending, and investments or savings. But it will total smaller categories for you. So add up the total of things like groceries or transportation into your fixed cost category and things like shopping or dining and drinks into your free spending category. Once those are totaled, this single calculation tells you exactly where you stand. Divide each number by your monthly take-home pay, and that's your current percentage allocation. If your fixed costs are at 65%, then maybe you're shopping at the wrong grocery store, and if your fund spending is at 30%, then maybe you're going out to eat too much. It's pretty simple, but the harder question is how to make sure you actually stick with this budget. Because without a repeatable process, following a budget depends entirely on motivation. And motivation is the worst possible foundation for a habit because it comes and goes. But there's a solution to this that's also extremely simple. One of the best books I've ever read is called Atomic Habits, and there are 4 rules to building a habit that makes you keep it. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. For your monthly budget review, making it obvious means picking a specific date, like the first Sunday of every month, and writing it in big letters on a calendar. Then put your calendar somewhere you'll see it every single day, like your fridge. Making it attractive means designing the environment you sit down in when you review your budget. You can play a playlist you enjoy, put on some comfy clothes, and light a candle. The goal is to make reviewing your budget feel like something other than a chore, because when something feels like a chore, you just skip it. Making it easy means capping the review at 30 minutes and trying not to dissect everything at once. For this half-an-hour window, you should find your spending percentages of the last month for each of the 3 categories. Then find one thing you've overspent on in that month, whether it was going out, groceries, or gas, and spend the remaining time thinking of a way to cut down that expense. Maybe when you go out, you get a beer instead of a cocktail. Maybe you shop around car insurance providers. Maybe you plan to do a Costco gas run instead of going to Shell. As long as you pick one small thing and make an actionable plan to cut that cost, you're done. And making it satisfying means rewarding yourself when the timer goes off. Go get a coffee or buy yourself a dessert or do something small that you actually enjoy. The reward closes the loop and signals to your brain that this behavior is worth repeating, and that's what turns a one-time review into a monthly habit that's too hard to skip. Now, before you create your budget and take one boring step closer to getting rich, make sure to like and subscribe. But there is one major question left. Between saving, investing, and early debt payoff, what do you do first? I broke down the order you should move your money in every time you get paid, which you can check out here. Because that sequence matters more than you think. Thank you, my friends, for watching, and I'll see you next time.